maybe 3, they look at the schools.
So you're arguing for a lower threshold for developing countries?
I think for developing countries, a lower threshold would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah, and third, harmful tax avoidance, CBC and?
Digital, yeah. That's the biggest challenge that I think tax systems are facing on the digital economy. I mean, in India, you have Moody's concept of digital India, yeah?
Absolutely.
Great concept, yeah. And I'm going to be down in Delhi on Friday discussing that.
Great.
But if we try to get the right treatment, tax treatment, the digital economy from a BEPS angle, from an abuse angle, we're going to get the wrong answers. Yeah? What we need, in fact, is to take the digital economy issues out of BEPS. Great topic, in fact, for the inclusive forum, and to have a debate on what tax rules do we need to make this part of our economy prosper, to create jobs, to create a transfer of technology, and at the same time protect the revenue basis. But coming from it from a purely BEPS perspective, you're not going to get the right answers. That's my three.
Yeah, absolutely. Post-Brexit, Jeffrey, we had a quote from you the very same evening, and you did say we need to see how this moves the needle when it comes to globalization, how other European nations may react, and the fear that a lot of us had or have. This is a vote against globalization, and many countries might now take this as a tea leaf and might be a little resentful against too much interference, over interference by Brussels. That's the sum of what you said. 3 months down the line,
I would still
Jeffrey,
maintain that position. Yeah, I think, in fact, that the vote of the UK to leave the United Kingdom, it wasn't hardly anything to do with the EU. It was to do with globalization, a feeling, in fact, that the average person in the street is not benefiting from globalization. It was a feeling that politicians were no longer accountable. The migration issue was very, very important. Yeah. So all of that is still very relevant. I still think, I still think that there's a 10% chance that maybe if the other European Union countries are sensible and patient, that vote could be reviewed, yes? Not in the form of a referendum, but maybe in the form of holding another election, yeah? And that would be my hope, because I think it's a bad decision for the UK, it's a bad decision for the EU, and it's a bad decision for the world, yeah? So, but insofar as that does move ahead, and I think it's sent a very strong message that perhaps hasn't always been heard in Brussels. It was certainly heard at the G20 when they met in China. Yeah, We need to do something about
sustained
the backlash.
Growth and tax certainty.
Sustained
tax
growth.
policy must lead to sustained growth
left one
and
word
inclusive.
Out.
Inclusive
Exactly.
growth.
It's sustained growth, inclusive growth. What do we mean by inclusive growth? It means that, and it's not just the middle classes that have to benefit. Yeah. It's the lower income groups, and we have to do something to address the very high level of inequality. I mean, when 1% of the population in the United States gets 20% of income, in many countries, half of wealth is owned by a very small percentage. We need to address that, because for the average citizen that's voting, it's becoming less acceptable. So if we want, in fact, to maintain support for globalization, we have to have not just growth, because jobs are important. We must have inclusive growth where the benefits and the gains are fairly shared, and where we use our tax system to pull back a little bit on the top income groups. And you can do it.
Yeah.
Inheritance taxes,
absolutely.
Capital gains taxes, net worth taxes, all taxes with a minimum effect on economic distortion. And I hope that that's going to be part of the G20 agenda.
Last question, Jeffrey. Wear your political hat for a moment, or your tax hat itself. The political leadership, the way they have continued to keep tax at the forefront in the G20 meeting, is something that we heard from Pascal, Mr. Maman's, a few minutes ago in the first session here today. Has that surprised you, number one? Number two, will that continue? Because there are times when different events occupy center stage, and tax could again slip back somewhere behind in the order of priority. That's one. Number two is, if there is a Trump administration on November 8th, what does it mean for international tax policy and BEPS? It's no longer as inconceivable as it was even a month or two back.
Yeah, well, the second question is the difficult one, so I'll put it aside for the moment. Yeah, I mean, on the first question, I think it's a very good thing that the G20 took up tax. I mean, they took it up at their second summit in 2009. The work that they did on tax transparency, They saw that as a success. In fact, some people say it was the biggest success of the G20, dealing with bank secrecy, dealing with tax havens, and that gives them the confidence that they can handle difficult tax issues. Yes? BEPS then came along and said, here's another issue. They endorsed that, yeah? They embraced it. Yeah? And now you have this third pillar of inclusive, sustainable growth.
Yeah.
Yeah? So what that tells to me is that the leaders, and we are talking about prime ministers and presidents, including Prime Minister Modi, yeah, that they've recognized that the G20 can be a very effective forum to take forward difficult issues in the tax area. The G20 doesn't do anything. It provides political support, it mandates organizations to do the work, yeah? But without that type of political support, sometimes it's very difficult for organizations, whether it's the World Bank, the IMF or the OECD, to actually move forward. So I don't see that enthusiasm diminishing. The inclusive growth one is going to be a little bit more difficult because countries are coming from very, very different positions. Yes?
Yeah.
So what may be a recommendation to get inclusive growth for India may be very different from getting inclusive growth from the United States. Yes?
Sure.
So probably a different type of product is coming out. On your last question of
Trump administration.
You know, it's very hard. I mean, I always worked on the basis you don't interfere in the political debate in other countries. Yes? You know, one thing that is not helpful at the moment is that none of the candidates have very clear plans on what they're going to do.
We haven't heard BEPS from anyone, or we haven't heard much about international tax policy, except corporate inversions and bringing that money back. Not much more,
I think
Jeffrey.
That's good.
Which is good. I'm saying.
And I tell you why it's good. Because what the United States is not just a revision of the international tax laws, it needs a revision of its whole tax system, yeah?
Sure.
And if you do as a package deal, it's going to be much easier to get the political support and to get the support. So that's what Reagan found in 1986, yeah? That by putting together a package of reforms...
A bipartisan tax cut.
You can get bipartisan then, because the Republicans may want something on the corporate side, the Democrats may want something.
You don't see Donald Trump pulling out of BEPS, right? Because he is talking of America first.
Yeah, but in some ways, I mean, you know, the UK is talking about the UK first as well. I mean, BEPS is intended to benefit countries. Yeah?
Sure.
And why did countries sign up to it? Because it did that. Yeah. So I think, you know, when he gets into if he gets in as president, I'm sure he'll have a very effective treasury. They will be explaining to him why the United States benefits from BEPS.
Yeah. Jeffrey, as usual, a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for your time. Next year in Rio.
Maybe.
Yeah, sure. Jeffrey. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Send me when you finish there, yeah.